Hi, I'm Jayna Riley, and this is AGELESS. I'm 40, and my life is just getting started. I'm here to share real talk and real experiences about how to live life ageless. Nothing's off the table. You know the vibes. Let's go. Welcome back to AGELESS, and today I have an exciting and layered new guest on the show. Dr. Stephen Bennett practices functional diagnostic medicine. He started his professional career as a mechanical engineer and segued into both the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries in business development roles. Along the way, Dr. Bennett gathered substantial experience in analytical lab diagnostics, nutritional physiology, biochemistry, and cell biology. Dr. Bennett began to practice in Solona Beach, California, with a focus on functional diagnostic medicine and nutritional physiology. After a decade of treating patients' concerns ranging from digestive to neurochemical, endocrine to optimal aging, Dr. Bennett decided to found his own nutraceutical company, Intuitive Nutrients. Dr. Bennett, welcome to the show.
Hey, excuse me. Hey, Jayna, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the chance to chat.
Absolutely. And, first off, I'm so fascinated by your journey to where you are today. And I would love for you to just tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, sure. Of course. I have to say that, like so many of us, it wasn't intentional. It was a matter of making choices along the way. And what's, I think, most inspiring to me personally at this point is that I finally found the niche that feels amazing. And I think you know what I'm talking about. It's when you're doing what the universe had intended for you to do. And instead of trying to push a rope, you're actually pulling, and you're flowing with what's supposed to be happening. And everything is easier when you're doing it that way, right?
It's when the stars align.
Yeah. And I told my mom the other day, who knew it would take me until my 50s to get to that point. But I'm just so grateful to be where I am right now, because every day is discovery and it's fun. And that's key. I've never had that before. So anyway, getting to my story, I started off with a mechanical engineering degree simply because I was good in math and science and I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I stumbled a little bit into pharma and biotech and spent about 13 or 14 years in those two industries, doing anything business related, but also dabbling in drug discovery, protein purification, kind of getting into some of the technical aspects of creating drugs and biologics. That was really fun, but I realized in my mid 30s that I didn't really like selling per se. I was in sales roles a lot. And I could do it, but I didn't love it. And so went back to school, thought about getting an MD, but the 8 years was daunting at that age. So a friend of mine was a chiropractor, and she helped me a lot with some problems I was having. And she was so passionate about what she did. So I went that route. It was 3.5 years full time, and I got my doctorate. What's funny is, as I entered that program, I met a fellow named Dr. Dan Kalish, and he's a guru and a mentor in the functional medicine field. And so from the first day of chiropractic school, I was actually studying functional medicine with more passion than chiropractic.
There's no coincidences.
No, right? So by the time I graduated, I needed to be a chiropractor because I needed to build a practice. But I was doing probably 50% functional medicine from the beginning. And then it just became a greater and greater and greater portion of my practice. And now I'll still see a few old friends from time to time, but it's all functional medicine at this point. And so I love it.
I love that story. And I just think you needed all those components to get to where you are today. It sounds like that.
That's so true. And I think the big lesson is just to be patient when you're undecided. Keep as many doors open as you can along the way, and trust that the way forward will be shown to you. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but it will happen if you're open,
I agree. And I'd love to dive deeper into your nutraceutical company, Intuitive Nutrients. So let's nerd out on how to live life at our highest level, which is what AGELESS is all about. And I want to start by asking you, what are some of the key issues or concerns that tend to come up for most people? Because I know, my audience, they may be struggling with some of these key issues. So let's just dive into that.
You bet. I mean, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I love. And I think rather than talk about the company and the products initially, we can do that later. What, as you're alluding to, what's most important is what are the key factors that are affecting our health and our wellness and our longevity, right? Because as we discussed, it's very simple. Everybody wants to feel well and live long. And feel well, meaning all aspects, not just the nutrient-based physiology stuff we're talking about today, but obviously all the other things that you touch on in terms of spiritual and mental, et cetera. I think underpinning those, however, if your body is not functioning well, it makes it more difficult to move forward in spiritual ways and other ways as well. So when I started functional medicine, when you start, you want to do everything for everybody. And so people would come in and I'd start working on the thyroid, or I'd start working on the adrenal glands or neurotransmitters. And as I gained more experience over the years, it became clearer and clearer to me that there are basically two main factors that are working against us. And you'll hear me say this a bunch. One of them is inflammation, which I think a lot of your listeners have probably heard about. And when we say inflammation, specifically what we call systemic inflammation. So it's not necessarily something you feel. It's something that we can measure in your blood and other ways. But inflammation, while it is part of our normal physiology, our current lifestyle tends to promote this low to medium level of chronic inflammation. And that is very damaging to a lot of aspects of our physiology. The other one that is really prominent is what's known as oxidative stress. And the easiest way to think about this one is we all know we're supposed to eat a lot of brightly colored vegetables and fruits because they are rich in antioxidants. So the analogy I like is when you start your car, there's exhaust coming out the exhaust pipe. Well, when you run your metabolism, there is exhaust coming out of your mitochondria, if you will, the little guys that make all the energy. And that exhaust, they are known as reactive oxygen species or free radicals. And these are little molecules that are put out as exhaust and they're missing an electron. And so they like to ricochet around your cells and try and steal electrons. Whenever they steal an electron from somebody, they leave behind damage. They hurt whatever they take that electron from. So when we take antioxidants in our diet or supplements, we're giving those electrons, we're quenching those free radicals and making them harmless, essentially. So inflammation and oxidative stress are the two primary drivers of all chronic disease, all disease, really. Cancer, heart disease, neurodegeneration, et cetera.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I struggle myself with inflammation. In fact, we were talking the other day and I said I was just starting this new detox because I feel so much inflammation. It gets in the way of my everyday life. And I'm just looking to combat it. So yes, I agree with you. It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a big deal. There's so much that's changed in our world in the last few hundred years, and especially the last 50 years. And you'll hear a lot of the thought leaders in medicine and in integrative medicine in particular talk about how our genetics haven't caught up to our environment. So 100 years ago, we were eating real food out of the ground that had real nutrients. And now, unless you really work at it and get good quality organic food, the nutrients from our soil have been stripped to a very large degree by the large scale way that we make food. And then the processing that a lot of food goes through makes it even worse. So genetically, we're not prepared for that. And that's one of the reasons why we have so much inflammation and chronic disease is that we're taking in nutrition in quotes, we're
Right.
taking in nutrition that isn't doing what it's supposed to do for our bodies, and it's creating a lot of havoc as a result. So doing a detox is an awesome thing to do. And as we chatted about the other day, the other piece of that is looking at what's going into the system, what you're eating. And then one of my favorite things to do in practice now is to look at the blood for food sensitivities and realize that even though you love broccoli, for whatever reason, your immune system may see broccoli as a foreign interloper that it doesn't really appreciate. And so it will have created antibodies to broccoli proteins, and those are inflammatory. So giving somebody a roadmap of all the foods that their body is happy about versus not happy about is a really awesome first step to getting a handle on inflammation.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to jump on that as soon as possible
We will.
because having that roadmap just leads to a better life. I think that's
Exactly.
what we all want.
Totally. And it also, detox is great, but wouldn't it be better if you didn't need to? I mean, that's,
Absolutely.
that's the goal. Yeah. So the favorite, I was always a teacher. I think at the end of the day, my favorite jobs have been teaching. In Cairo school, the hardest class was taught by an MD, no, a PhD master of public health named Dr. Boss. And he taught infectious disease. And countless students threw themselves against the wall of that class more than once trying to get through the program and get their license. And so I used to tutor infectious disease because my favorite thing is to teach somebody something that they think is impossible to understand. But if you're a good teacher, you can make it digestible. You can make it clear. It doesn't, a bad teacher can make anything difficult, and a good teacher can make anything approachable, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. So I love to teach.
You're doing it well, and you're doing it for us right now. We're learning so much in such a short time already.
Well, and it's funny, we talked about this. It's kind of like a fire hose with me sometimes. And I ask you to, put the brakes on me when I get going. If it's getting too technical, if it's too much, please don't hesitate to let me know, because I have a tendency to go a little strong sometimes.
Well, I love where we were going, and we were talking about key issues or concerns that come up for most people. And I think I detoured us talking about my own detox and inflammation issues.
Well, so perhaps just to underpin inflammation and oxidative stress a little bit. So the big diseases that we suffer from and die from: cardiovascular disease, cancer. Those are the two biggest ones. Here's a crazy thing that just came out last week. There's a word called iatrogenic, and that means death or sickness due to medical care. And it is the number 3 leading cause of death and sickness in the US. And
that's mind-blowing and scary.
It's stunning. And believe me, I have the utmost respect for the medical profession. I think it's to a large degree, it's been corrupted by corporate investment. So the bottom line has become money instead of patient wellness. And but long story short, let's circle back. Inflammation, right? Inflammation and how it promotes disease. All sorts of negative pathways in our bodies, ones that don't help us be well, but actually promote sickness, are facilitated by inflammation. It's like gasoline on the fire. Right? Same with oxidative stress. Oxidative stress, actually, the best way to think about that is when you put a piece of metal out in the weather and it rusts. That is an oxidative process, that rusting. And you can think of that in terms of our cells and our cell membranes and our tissues when they're exposed to oxidative stress. They don't rust per se, but they have the same kind of damage, and it inhibits their ability to function significantly.
What about, I know we had talked about this. I'm probably going to butcher this. Mitochondrial function.
Yes, you didn't. You did perfectly.
Yes.
So everybody that I ask, if they know what the word mitochondria is, they will say they are the powerhouse of the cell, because that's what we were taught, right, in high school biology. And so they are the powerhouse. They create the energy that makes us alive. And that energy is a little molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And without the mitochondria functioning, we would die in a matter of seconds. It would be that fast. In every cell in our body, there are many, many, many mitochondria, sometimes hundreds, if not thousands. And in the tissue that's most important, like the muscle cells of our heart that have to work every day, all day until we die, that those muscle cells, cardiomyocytes, have the greatest density of mitochondria and the greatest number, because they require the greatest amount of energy, right? Anyway, they're shaped like little kidney beans, and they're microscopic, and they do their most important role is to take what we eat, essentially, and turn it into energy, convert it, if you will, into ATP. And so what we've learned in the last decade really is that the health and wellness of our mitochondria directly mirrors our overall health and wellness. So if our mitochondria are all dinged up and nicked up and stressed out and rusty, that's how we're going to be as a living organism. And so that leads us to the question of, all right, how do we promote mitochondrial health, right? And that takes us right back to oxidative stress and inflammation.
Of course it does.
Right? So it's really not, at the end of the day, this is a fairly simple premise with a lot of big words, right?
Right.
It's these little kidney beans just trying to live their life. And it's us doing really, things like eating a lot of processed food and sugar, making it really hard for them to just do their thing and live their lives. So anything that we can do to help the kidney beans helps us. That's it.
Love that analogy. I'm going to remember this forever.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah, the kidney bean has a whole new meaning for me today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so one of the other kind of elephant in the room, other than inflammation and oxidative stress, and related to those, is how we're doing metabolically. Everybody knows that obesity and diabetes are just running rampant in the US. I think we're at 10% of the population has type 2 diabetes. So there are almost 40 million people today, and it's growing at 2 million people a year. And here's where it kind of comes home to a lot of people. If you're not a scientist, maybe then the economic piece will make sense. The lifetime healthcare cost of a typical type 2 diabetic is about $150,000. Wow. So if you take 150 grand times 40 million, it's a big number. And guess what? We're all paying it, right? I mean, because the vast majority of people that are racking up those expenses are over 65. So they're on Medicare. So you and I are paying those bills. So even though I don't have diabetes and you don't have diabetes is super duper important to us, right?
Right.
Not just because we want those people to have a healthier life and not, lose a foot or a kidney or an eye to diabetes, but also because it's taken away from our children's future. We're saddling them with these crazy bills. And that's just diabetes. We're not even talking about one of the things we'll get into at some point is fatty liver. And that's like a tsunami compared to diabetes. And it's, we'll get there when you're ready to get there. But what I want to get across is, as a country, we've been kind of hoodwinked by the food industry, and we're on average eating a lot of really not the right stuff, and we're not moving our bodies enough, and it's really killing us, and it's getting very expensive. That's kind of the takeaway, unfortunately, at this point.
Yeah.
So we gotta educate. We gotta let people know that this silent stuff is killing us financially and physically. And the awareness, honestly, Jayna, the best money we could spend is just to buy all the fruits and vegetables, all the organic fruits and vegetables we can, and just have trucks running down the middle of all the streets of all the cities, giving away free apples and bananas and peppers and carrots. And we would make such a huge impact on our national healthcare costs. It wouldn't even be funny. Just make it free. I know that sounds nuts, but it's the return on investment of that would be 20 to 1.
So. I agree with you. And in fact, I've said in an earlier podcast that the American diet does not give you enough of what you need. So it makes sense to fill in the gaps with what you're not getting through diet alone with supplements. Yeah. And that takes me back to intuitive nutrients and how that comes to play. I also know that when I cut out completely processed foods and sugar, and I'm eating mostly fruits and vegetables, I am performing on a level I can't even explain. And I also take supplements. I don't think it's a bad thing if you know what you're doing. And I know I'm speaking to the expert right now, but that was just my takeaway from my life in fitness. And I agree. I mean, the more raw foods we're eating, the better we're going to feel.
It's stunning. And trust me, my diet is far from perfect. I don't want to preach, but I will. Your experience when you went and did that for yourself, the majority of people never have had that experience because they've not had a chance to take a breath and do it, and or maybe the self-discipline, right? Because it's not easy. But boy, the way you feel when you put that kind of fuel into your engine, it's night and day. Your mental clarity, your emotional stability, your physical strength, your sleep, everything
is affected.
It's breathtaking. And I just hope that people hear that and give it a try just once and you'll be hooked.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can we sidestep over to, I hope I don't butcher this, calorie restriction mimetics.
Yes. Okay, so yes, we can, and great job. This is another simple concept with a big word attached to it. And I have to tell you, being trained as a quote unquote a doctor, right? They actually teach you to use big words every 10 or 15 or 20 words. And I will divulge this secret of the medical industry. The function of that technique is to maintain a differential of authority between the doctor and the patient. Because the last thing most doctors want is a patient that challenges them, because that complicates everything, makes it way more difficult to do your job in the 3.5 minutes allowed for the traditional general practice, physician. So big words are designed to keep you off balance, sadly. And thank God for things like the internet and PubMed and repositories of information where you can take your time and you can read about stuff, and don't let those big words dissuade you. They're there for a reason. And if somebody can kind of translate them for you, there's an app, right? There's an app like Medicine Demystified for Dummies. Let's do this. So calorie restriction mimetics. We've known for decades that people that tend to eat less live longer. It's just been proven so many times. And so calorie restriction means, on average, you and I, based on our height and our weight, probably need about 2,000 calories a day, anywhere from 1,800 to 2,400 just to run our system.
Yeah.
Now, if you exercise, it's more, obviously. If you're sedentary, it's probably less. And when we take in more than we need, that's when we put on weight, right?
Right.
But there's people that just by virtue of their countenance or their lifestyle or their upbringing tend to just eat on the lower end of their normal need. So they tend to be lean, right? And what we have found is those people live on average 10, 15% longer than other folks. So mimetic is a word that means copy. So if something is a mimetic, it creates something, it copies something. So calorie restriction mimetics are molecules in nature, like this one called spermidine, another one called NMN, and we'll talk about those later. But if you take these into your system, they trigger similar pathways or the same pathways as calorie restriction. And so that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Not to say, not to take anything away from real legitimate calorie restriction, but understanding that not everybody is cut out to keep their calories low. This is a way to kind of hack that system a little bit. And that's really, to be honest, biohacking, that term,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I do. I do it ethically and safely, but I try and look at aging or metabolic disease, or diabetes, or whatever condition we're talking about. And I try and look at the science and come up with formulas that allow us to mitigate the damage from these diseases. Because, yeah, all of us should be eating 100% organic and running 3 miles a day, right? If
Right.
we all did that, man, it'd be a different world. But the fact of the matter is, we won't, we don't, and we won't. And to think that we will is a fool's errand, right?
Right.
So my kind of inspiration is to find ways to biohack so that I can actually create longevity or create greater health and wellness via supplements, and not just leave people hanging high and dry if they can't do the lifestyle stuff the way they need to or should. So calorie restriction mimetics are a couple, there's a handful of substances that you can put in supplement form that mimic, and that's where the word mimetic comes from, that mimic calorie restriction. Now, the most interesting aspect of this whole conversation is, why does calorie restriction make us live longer? And it has to do with this little process called autophagy. And we talked about this just a moment ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
You and I.
Mm-hmm.
And autophagy is a weird word that most people haven't heard. And if you look at the Latin root, it means self-eating. And what autophagy means in our bodies is it's a process that's ongoing, and it waxes and wanes. And it really comes into play when we fast. So our human organism, us, we weren't designed to have food at the ready all the time. Thousands of years ago, we would eat when there was food. We would eat as much as we could because we knew it might be a few days before we would have food again.
Yeah, we have to work for it.
Yeah. And we could deep dive. There's so many rabbit holes with me. It's like Dr. Rabbit Hole. There's a reason why our cortisol is really high in the morning. It's because we're hunter gatherers. We didn't have a mini fridge in the cave, right? We're supposed to get up and forage and hunt, and we might not eat until the afternoon or evening or the next day. So autophagy is this process. I likened it to when you finally just man up and go to the garage and deal with it and have a garage sale, or just donate, throw away, sell, whatever. That's what our cells do in autophagy. They look inward and they're like, okay, that protein over there, that mitochondria over there, that structural thing over there, it's all broken. And we've just been putting it in the garage. But now, since this person is fasting, we have a chance to break it down, sell it, turn it into something new, convert it to useful material. That's what autophagy is. And so if we're constantly putting food into our body, we don't go into autophagy the way we are designed to. And so we get a buildup of this dysfunctional stuff in our cells, and that ages us. Primarily mitochondria.
That is so interesting to me.
Isn't that neat? So the way this translates from a biohacking perspective is, okay, you're not going to fast 24 hours. I mean, it'd be awesome if you did, even like once a month, right?
Right.
Just water fast for 24 hours. That would kick the autophagy mechanism into high gear. You would have a garage sale and your body would love you for it. Now, if you're not going to do that, the biohacking is using specific nutrients to stimulate those autophagy pathways. Probably, honestly, probably not as efficiently as fasting. Because I'll tell you one thing, you said it earlier, you take supplements and I take supplements. I have a supplement company, but I swear, good, wholesome food is, if you can get everything you need from your food, please do. I'll be fine. It's like supplements are great, but food is better, much better, because the molecules come together in families the way they're supposed to. Like if you take vitamin C, ascorbic acid is what we created in the chemistry lab. And it is this skeleton shell of vitamin C. When you eat an orange, like all the white part that's between the peel and the fruit, that's called the pericarp. There's so much important stuff in there. And when you eat an orange, you get vitamin C in the natural form. And it's 10 times as good for you as ascorbic acid. And it won't give you diarrhea either, which is kind of awesome.
That's a perk.
That is a perk. So autophagy, fasting is huge. And I suggest everybody at least consider and try to implement intermittent fasting, which I think you do. I know I do. And that's simply compressing the number of hours during the day that you take food in. So I try not to eat until noon, and I really try not to eat after 6:30. And if you can just
that's strict. I haven't been able to do that yet, but I sometimes do intermittent fasting, and when I'm just trying to get off of something, like off of the processed foods, off of sugar mostly, and then I'll eat whole foods, and I'll try to do like 10 a.m. is when I'll eat, and then I'll try to stop eating by 7 or 8 p.m. But
even that is great. What intermittent fasting really tries to get away from is, as an agrarian farming society, we would get up and breakfast was crucial because you were going out into the fields until dark, right?
Right.
So we would eat at 6 a.m. We'd pack a lunch and we'd come home and have dinner at 6:30 or 7. So you were eating at least 12 hours of the day. And if you can winnow that down to 10 hours or 8 hours or 6 hours, it's a win for your body, big time.
Well, I definitely feel the difference when I do it consistently.
Yeah. It's a great way to lose weight too. If you're trying to do that, there was a book about 12 years ago called The Fast Diet. And it was written by this British MD named Mosby. And that approach to intermittent fasting was 2 days a week. You cut your calories down to 500 or 600 calories. And that's pretty drastic, right? That's significant. The upside is the other 5 days of the week, you can eat however you want. And, try not to be nuts, but you don't have to really be watching it. And people lose weight doing that. And think about it. It's triggering autophagy. It's resetting the metabolism, if even for a day. It's saying, hey, guys, why don't you take the day off and do some constructive stuff instead of just digesting all this pasta,
Right. No, I think it's great that you just mentioned that, because even just for a day, and sometimes we have to take, when we're doing something new, that first day is usually the hardest, but maybe we just do one day instead of setting ourselves up for, we have to do this for 12 weeks just to have results. No, guess what? We can just do one day and then see how your body responds.
Totally. And I recommend this book. It's maybe 100 pages. It's on Amazon. The reason to get this book is twofold. One is it does a good job describing the physiology and it's interesting. But two is they go through how you get through a day on 500 calories. Because you could go to Starbucks and you could have 500 calories in a cup and that's it for the day. Or you could stretch 500 calories into ways that actually, quote unquote, stick to your ribs and you don't have to suffer as much. And you can drink all the coffee and tea you want. Coffee and tea are actually,
for that part,
right? and this is a little side note. Coffee and tea are very, very good for us. Very good for us, for a number of reasons that we don't have to get into. But please, anybody that's listening, in my professional opinion, don't restrict those two things unless you have other health issues that you're dealing with. So intermittent fasting is free, and even 1 day a week is awesome and will be beneficial. So that's a great point, Jayna. It's like I learned in practice, you can have the best ideas. I could put together this 10-point plan for a patient with all these supplements, and it doesn't matter if the patient can't or won't follow it, then it's worthless.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how smart you are. You gotta get something in their hands that they can actually use. And if it's just intermittent fasting and drinking more water, they're going to be better off.
And that's a beautiful start too.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, as you were talking about calorie restriction mimetics, you mentioned NMN and spermidine.
Yeah, those are two of my like most favorite molecules currently, and they have been for about a year and a half. NMN stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide. Once again, the bane of big words, right? So
Yes.
NMN in our cells, we have this stuff called NAD. And as we age, we have less and less NAD in our cells. And it's really important for about 100 reasons. When you and I were, when I was 20, compared to now I'm in my 50s, I have less than half of the NAD in my cells that I did when I was 20. And using NMN, it's a precursor, meaning it's a molecule you can take in via capsule, or my favorite way is powder under the tongue, sublingual powder. It's a very good route to take a lot of things. You can rebuild those natural levels of NAD, and it's primarily a longevity play. It's a and, and one thing I actually want to clarify: longevity is a word that's been bandied about for a long time, and the word that is more appropriate is health span, meaning I can't tell a patient I'm going to increase their lifespan by 5 years or 1 year or 10 minutes. They're going to die when genetically they're programmed to go. Our job is to make sure that they're having fun, feeling well, and doing the things they love until the day before, ideally, right? That's maximizing your health span. So
Yes.
if you're going to be 92, I want 91.95 years of joy and then zero point zero 0.05, quick and clean exit to what's next. That's what we want, right?
That's
So
the dream.
that's the dream. And so taking NMN is a one of the effective ways to recharge parts of our physiology that tend to decline with age. And there are a couple others. There's one called nicotinamide riboside, NR. The thing I don't like about that one is that the company that created it patented it, and NMN is not patented. So when you buy nicotinamide riboside, in my opinion, it's slightly inferior to NMN, and
Mm.
it's also more expensive. But Chromadex, the company that patented it, does a really good job trying to scare everybody about anything else than nicotinamide riboside, their product. And there's a PhD that is a mouthpiece for that company, and he's never wrong, never ever wrong. And I hate that because everybody's wrong except that guy.
Except that guy.
Yeah. And you know what, Jayna, I don't know if I told you this. This is my favorite saying in all of life. You should always run towards those that are seeking the truth and run away from those that tell you they found it.
I like that.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that today.
Isn't that a great one? I mean, yeah, we won't go any deeper, but I think you and I were raised in organized religious families, and I spent many years of my life sitting in a pew listening to somebody tell me the truth.
Yep.
And I know now that we're all seeking the truth, and it's a lifelong, pursuit.
It
Um,
truly is. No, it really
yeah,
is. And it's
yeah,
ever evolving.
yeah. You're never going to know the truth. All you can do is seek it, and that's
Is
the
the
joy, right? If you could figure
it
it
is
out, it'd
the
be
joy.
boring, right? That's why I play
Absolutely. And
golf. You'll
part of
never
it
be
is
good at it.
God, I haven't played golf in ages, but let's get out there sometime because I do
Yeah, I'd love
love
to.
golf.
Oh, I love it. So anyway, calorie restriction mimetics, right? Fasting is huge. There are supplements that can help with it. NMN is a way to help replace the diminishing NAD levels in your cells. And it's very popular. If you just Google it, you're going to see it everywhere. I have it in my company product line. And probably the most exciting thing that I do is I create my own formulations. And I can get something to market because it's my company.
Yes.
So the big companies like Metagenics, it takes them about 3 years to get something to market because there's a whole lot of inertia. A whole lot of people have to sign off on a new product. And for good reason, in some cases, safety is paramount, right? But they're not nimble the way I can be at Intuitive Nutrients. And so when you look at my product line, you're going to see innovative, cutting edge stuff that's safe, but it's, I don't sell vitamin C, I don't sell calcium, although they're very important. They're kind of not super exciting intellectually. So I tend to go towards things like NMN, and then I sent you a U-Haul full of research this morning.
This is true. And I started to dive in and I was like, I'm not going to be able to get through any of this before the podcast, but
and
you sent me something really cool, and you sent me an article called The Hallmarks of Aging, and my eyes went straight to interventions that might extend human health span. And I was like, that's exactly where my eyes went. And with the graph and everything else, we all want to live a healthier, longer life.
Yeah.
That's it.
And lifestyle is the key to it. Diet and exercise, that's it. There would be no need for supplements if everybody could do that well. But given where we live and how much we work and all the other constraints, that's why there's a supplement industry. Now, sadly, I think we spent $50 billion on supplements last year in the US. And and it's growing. And on a positive note, it's filling a need. I mean, up until a few years ago, medical doctors had no nutritional education, none. So they'd come out and start practicing and have no idea what a polyphenol antioxidant was, or why glycemic index mattered, why you shouldn't eat pasta. Why? They didn't know. They weren't taught. So, and not shouldn't eat pasta, but if you're a diabetic, you should watch your carbs. That's what I meant. Right. I love pasta. So anyway, the public increasingly in the last 10, 15 years has looked elsewhere than traditional medicine for health and wellness. And that's awesome. However, you have to trust who you're working with, because there's a lot of shenanigans going on in the supplement world. The thing I like to use as a analogy or to illustrate that is magnesium. You know magnesium, right?
I do.
And you take it. And I think you take a really good form of it. I saw one of your podcasts that I checked was you went through what you take.
Oh, that was back in my fitness days. I had done a YouTube video on my favorite supplements for fitness. Yeah. And one of my favorite brands is Solare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
And I believe that was the magnesium that I was taking. I think it was a calcium magnesium blend.
Yes, it was.
Balance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, so here's the kicker. There are 8 different forms of magnesium, and they vary widely in terms of how much actually can be absorbed by your body. Now, if you look on a label and you're just the average consumer and you see magnesium 300 milligrams, you're like, oh, cool. I know magnesium's good. This seems like a decent amount. I'm taking it. Well, if it's magnesium oxide, your body can absorb maybe 8% of that 300 milligrams. And guess what? Magnesium oxide is the least expensive raw material when it comes to buying magnesium. And so if you are a less than ethical supplement manufacturer, guess what form of magnesium goes into all your products? Magnesium oxide. Mm. And people see it on the label. The price is right because the raw material cost is minimal. But there are no truer words in the supplement industry than you get what you pay for. And so if it's a deal, if you're getting it at Costco or Walmart, there are good things at those places, but usually a low price in a nutritional supplement is there's a reason why the price is low. And the saying that my mentor taught me is like the most expensive supplement out there is the one that you either don't need or can't absorb.
That makes all the sense.
Right? Because that's just wasted money, 100% wasted money. So, I forget what form your magnesium was. I think it was glycinate or one of the good ones. But I guess my point is with Intuitive Nutrients, my nature is such that I don't want anything that I sell to another person and the person gives me money for it. I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, that was a good value for you. and it was a fair exchange between you and me. I know that product inside and out. I know what it does. I know it'll work. I know you're not wasting your money, and I'm not tricking you. That's my company in a nutshell. And
I feel like that's how every supplement company should be, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. And you just explained that. I'm going to plug two of your products right now because you sent me my boyfriend and I are both using True Peptide Boost and True Peptide Powder. Yeah. And I would say within the first 2 weeks of using it, I noticed a dramatic difference in my skin. Tell us the hows and the whys behind the magic, because I love it. I take it every morning.
No, thank you. And this is a perfect illustration of great product, good value, fair exchange, right? That, like I said, that's all that matters to me at the end of the day. I have to be able to sleep at night and look you in the eye. Okay, here's why. This is like a David and Goliath story. Vital proteins, right? The one that's at Costco that Jennifer Aniston promotes, right?
Yes.
They make collagen, and that's about all you can say. They make collagen, and that collagen will have an effect on you if you take it long enough and you take enough of it. The comparison between what you're taking and them is night and day, and here's why. Collagen is a very, very big molecule. And when you take, for example, vital proteins, most of it comes from cow skin. I call it cowhide peptide. They just take cow skin and ligaments and soft tissue, and they boil it down. They render it. And then they do a little light purification, and they make a powder out of it and put it in tubs and sell it. So the $40 canister of collagen that you buy from Vital Proteins, the raw material cost that's in that thing is like $3.27.
Damn.
Yeah. And they're making a mint, right? Because people are just like, you know what? Jennifer Aniston, I trust her. I'm being facetious. Anyway.
No, I agree with you. And even the word collagen, everybody's on the collagen train right now. So if the word collagen is on the bottle, it doesn't matter if it's shit. People are taking it.
Totally. And so here's why ours is different. Ours is actually a proprietary patented form of marine tripeptide collagen, meaning they take it from the scales of tilapia, which is a warm water fish that's raised in a kosher environment. And excuse me, the reason why it's so different is it is rich in tripeptides, which are these tiny molecules that are just 3 amino acids long. And that's why tri for 3 peptide. So it's a 3 amino acid peptide. Now, peptide is such a crazy term because it can mean hundreds of amino acids strung together that don't have any specific function, but they get to call it peptide. Okay. So that's where the language confuses people. The neat thing about tripeptides is that they act as not just raw materials to help you make collagen, they act as signaling molecules. So they're functional. They go into your body. First of all, they have their own dedicated VIP receptors in your gut that take them right into the bloodstream. They don't need to be chopped up and processed for absorption. They have specific dedicated channels that take them right in. And they go into your system and tell your fibroblasts, the cells that make collagen, they tell them to go to work. And nobody else has that. And nobody else even talks about it because they don't have it. In Vital Proteins, these tripeptides that are made of glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, GPH, is probably 0.05%, or less than 1%, 0.5% in Vital Proteins. And in the stuff you're taking from Intuitive Nutrients, they're no less than 15%.
Oh, wow.
And that's why a dose of Vital Proteins is anywhere from 12 to 20 grams. And a clinical dose of our product is 1 gram. You can take 2.
Tiny. It's tiny compared, because I have taken Vital Proteins. I thought it was a good brand, and I thought it's what decent. I was taking was good. But when you sent me the product, I completely changed my mind on everything.
Yeah. So 2 other things that are important about those tripeptides. First and foremost, they tell your fibroblasts to get to work. They don't just, it's like the analogy is if you just send a pallet of bricks to a job site and hope that something happens, that's one way. That's the Vital Proteins way. If you send a pallet of bricks and a mason and a supervisor to the job site, there's a good chance something's going to get built.
Yeah, shit's going to
right?
get done.
Shit's going to get done. So the two other things that tripeptides do that the other stuff doesn't do, and this is clinically shown, I can send you the research. You remember when President Obama went into office and he looked so young and had all black hair, and then remember when he left office?
Yes.
And he looked, and this happens to all presidents, and it's because cortisol, the stress hormone, blocks the fibroblasts from making collagen. So when you're under stress, no wonder you look like shit, because your body stops making collagen.
I didn't know that. That is so
interesting. I didn't know that until like a year ago. And I thought I knew collagen. And I see this study and I'm like, what the heck? That's huge. That's massive. Because guess who's under stress? Everybody.
Everybody.
So the tripeptides actually go in and block the little receptor that cortisol would normally dock onto to stop the fibroblasts from working. They're a shield. They protect the fibroblasts from cortisol. So isn't that awesome? That's like amazing. I get goosebumps. This is my nerd factor coming out large right now.
And that's what this show is all about. Nerd out on what you love, that just, live your life at the highest level. We can.
Well, here's the two things. Thank you. I totally agree. But the third thing that we do that Vital Proteins doesn't do is we block UVB radiation in the skin. Oh. So guess what ages your skin? UVB radiation from the sun, among other things, right? So that's our huge. Product actually blocks, and I'll send you the research, right? I mean, I will never say anything that I can't back up with peer-reviewed scientific literature. That's one thing you should know about me. So anyway, it's a very different collagen, very different. Small dose, high purity, very functional. Rather than just, let's see, we'll throw a bunch of cowhide peptides in your stomach and see what happens, right?
Right. And so the other thing, easy to take. I put it in my coffee and every single morning. It's just part of my ritual, and it's just so easy.
Well, and it's such a small dose, you could take 2 capsules and you would get the same full clinical dose of that collagen. So if you didn't want to travel with powder, or you don't like powder for some reason, you can take 2 capsules. My wife does. She doesn't like the powder for whatever reason. So she actually takes 6 capsules because she knows a guy, right?
Right.
Anyway, let's get to the boost, because that's my like golden child. You know what hyaluronic acid is, right? It's in a lot of cosmetic products, and it functions to hold on to moisture in your skin, which makes it plump and really nice. So Vital Proteins started adding hyaluronic acid to their collagen. And I'm like, really? Really? Okay. Well, I'll not only 1-up you, I will like 8-up you. So I made the boost formulation, which is 2 capsules a day. They're the small, like number 0 capsules. So they're not as big as regular ones. But I put hyaluronic acid, 100 milligrams, which is like 20% more than Vital Proteins. And I put zinc and vitamin C and NMN. We talked about that earlier.
We did.
NMN is really good for skin. I put ceramides, another big thing in cosmetics. Ceramides actually function like grout between tiles. So they keep your skin cells, the flat cells of your skin, together, and they keep moisture from escaping. I don't know if you have the bottle handy, but there's like 3 other things. Oh,
I don't have it within arm's reach, unfortunately.
Keratin, which is big for hair and nails. It's a big part of what makes our hair and our nails. And like 1 or 2 other things. So the collagen standalone is awesome. But if you want to just take it up another notch, you can add the boost. It's 2 small capsules a day. But here's the best part. If you're going to buy Vital Proteins marine collagen peptides with a little bit of hyaluronic acid in it, it's going to cost you like $130 for 3 months if you do auto ship. I made it so that you can get our true peptide collagen powder and our boost formula for the same price.
Wow.
And it's like, I just wish I could go on national TV and say that one time, because it's like,
I know, because you're on the cutting edge.
I know. And it's a steal. and I do it because I can, right? I don't have a huge organizational structure to pay. I can afford to give you a really great value, and that's the fun part. So yeah, we have a bundle where you get the powder, 3 months worth of the powder and 3 months worth of the. I think that's what I sent you.
Yeah,
Um,
and I have seen a dramatic difference in my boyfriend's skin. He is glowing. He it
that's
looks
because he's with you, you silly
so much
goose.
younger than me now. And
Oops. Oh, that's not good.
no, I'm kidding. No, his skin looks amazing and it
Oh, that's
feels
awesome.
great. And I am having the same result. And it happened
Yeah.
fast. Like I said, within the first 2 weeks, I'm like, what's going on around here?
E-
Everybody is glowing.
well, you all are both living your best lives too, and that certainly has an impact. But I'll take a little bit of the credit for your skin.
Yes,
Um,
please do.
and I just want to let your folks know that we are we're gonna give a discount code for 20% off whatever you want to buy. If you go to my website, you can buy whatever you want and get 20% off. It's a one-time deal. You can buy the 3 month supply and take it even 20% lower than the already great price. We don't give that. You can't buy auto ship in conjunction with the discount because then it would just get like too discounted.
Right.
But if somebody wants to just do themselves a favor for a little more than $100 to get 3 months of insane skin care, I mean, this is probably the best thing available, I would say, honestly. So
I I have nothing but amazing things to say about the
thank you.
product, which is why I wanted to bring it up because I mean, I'm taking
Yeah.
it. I've used it. I can give a recommendation, and
Thank
that
you.
means a lot that you created that discount code for our listeners, and
Oh,
I
yeah,
really
for
appreciate
sure.
that. So is it intuitivenutrients.com, right?
That's the website. And then the code that I created is AGELESS20.
So
Um,
AGELESS 20, intuitivenutrients.com. The code is AGELESS 20. You'll save 20% off the product, which is huge,
yeah.
huge.
Look,
And I will also put this in the show notes if
okay.
anybody needs to access it that way.
Yeah. And the bundle that we're talking about is in the bundles. And there are two versions. There's one where the powder, the collagen is in the powder form. That's less expensive. But if you really like capsules, it's a little bit more to get capsule form of the collagen. So you have both choices. And with a 20% discount, it's a screaming deal on either one.
I
But look under
agree.
bundles for that one, and you'll be happy.
God, I wish we
Um,
could go down the line on your products page and
well,
just talk about some of your
I
best
know.
stuff. So let's do it now. Let's go through some
Well,
of them that you would recommend.
okay, let's do this. And I don't want to be greedy, but I mean, I could literally do an hour with you on each of the four segments of our company, right? Beauty, GI, metabolic, and longevity. So maybe over the course of the next year or whatever, we'll touch on those if you want to. But
No, I'd love to
let's,
have you back. I love having my guests back because
it's so
as
fun.
they evolve and create new products, or, a
Mm-hmm.
book might be coming out, or a new website was just launched, or even a podcast, I'd
Yep.
love to talk about that. So I would like to have you back on and we can just do each segment.
Okay, so for today, we'll do the cliff notes, right? We'll do the abridged version. So
Yes.
we already talked about the high points in the quote unquote beauty from within segment. That's collagen and skin, hair, and nails. The second group is metabolic, and that's like anywhere from boy, I just want to like lose a little weight to holy crap, I have diabetes and I don't want to just take drugs. So two things I want to speak to: fatty liver, also known as non-alcoholic fatty liver, is a big deal. It affects about 30% of our population. Most people don't know they have it. And if unchecked, it can, not always, but it can lead to cirrhosis and liver cancer. And when you start doing the numbers of how many people have it, and it's growing because we're eating too much, um, there's only so many livers available for liver transplants. And at the end of the day, the number of people that are going to need livers and the number of livers is going to be like just you don't even want to think about taking your liver to that extreme. So we have a product called Burgapure that is amazing. It's essentially a patented formulation of bergamot which
Mm-hmm.
is from southern Italy. It's this beautiful, big green, orange looking thing, has a ton of polyphenols in it, and a wild artichoke called Cynara. The artichoke stimulates the gallbladder, which is part of the weight loss aspect of it. And then the polyphenols in the bergamot are huge for reversing fatty liver. So if you want the best liver formula on the market, and I know them all, you know me, I know them all. And so many people are spending money on just mediocre liver formulas. It's not even funny. These actually have clinical trials on PubMed for this specific material in diabetics and overweight people. So you'll double, if you're dieting, you'll almost double the amount of weight you're going to lose. So that's cool.
That's
and
amazing.
right.
Who doesn't
and
want that?
Right. If you're going to make the effort to cut out like 400 calories a day, which is usually what people do when they diet, they'll try and cut out around 400 out of 2000. And if you could, like, at the end of your diet, maybe 6-8 weeks, lose 10 pounds instead of 5 pounds, that would be awesome for one capsule a day. And it's like $1 a day. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, right?
No-brainer.
So let's leave metabolic at that. Let's talk about weight loss and fatty liver, liver health, Burgapure. Okay. That's like amazing product. And it's patented. It's not just somebody went out and found the cheapest milk thistle they could and put it in a capsule and sold it on Amazon. I don't sell on Amazon, by the way. And there's a reason for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Amazon is the Wild West in terms of quality. So I don't sell there. So that's 2 out of the 4. Let's go to longevity.
Okay.
And I want to talk about that one we were talking about this morning. It's called True Spermidine. And it's a combination of spermidine, which is, we could talk about that for a week, but basically it's a disease protective longevity molecule. It is so vital. It's one of the things that we get in our diet, but the studies have shown the people that eat the foods that have a lot of it, like soy, peas, mushrooms, fermented cheeses, that kind of stuff, they followed a group in northern Italy for 20 years. And the people that had the highest dietary intake of spermidine lived 5.7 years longer, just over that 20-year period.
Wow.
And that's huge.
That is huge.
And what they didn't die from was cancer and heart disease. So I'll take 5 years.
Right.
When you're 80, 5 years is a big deal.
Huge deal.
Right. So True Spermidine has spermidine, 3 milligrams, which it sounds tiny, but it's a lot. I mean, compared to what else is out there on the market, 3 milligrams of spermidine at the cost that we're putting it out there at is huge. We combine it with 375 milligrams of resveratrol, which we've heard about for probably 20 years. It comes from red wine, not red wine, from grapes.
Yes.
Ironic. Yes. And in order to get significant amounts of it, you'd have to eat a ton of grapes or drink a ton of wine. And so 375 milligrams of resveratrol is a big dose. It's great for the heart. It's great for longevity. It teams up with spermidine as a calorie restriction mimetic. And it's a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing, where if you just took resveratrol, you'd get this benefit. And if you just took spermidine, you'd get that benefit. But if you put them together at even lower levels, you get a much greater. Well, it's like when you met Paul. You both made each other better than you were separate, right?
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it's called synergy, right?
Synergy.
1 + 1 = 3.
Yes.
And so that's what True Spermidine is. So if anybody's thinking longevity, disease prevention, heart, mitochondria, cognitive decline, it's huge in cognitive decline. So I know we're all painfully aware of our parents, are getting there. I'm not that far away from worrying about my cognitive function. I don't ask my wife. True Spermidine is huge for a billion reasons. So if you're going to do one thing for longevity, that's the one. And it's like, I think $49 for a month's worth. It's a screaming value, just like most of the things that I put out there. So that's 3. So we got Burgapure in the metabolic, we got True Spermidine in longevity, and we got the collagen and boost in the beauty from within. Yeah. The last one is remember that word I taught you? It's pleiotropic.
Pleiotropic. That's on my list of things I wanted to ask you about.
Yep. So pleiotropic means something that acts in many different ways within the body. and has a number of benefits through separate channels. And so it's almost the opposite of traditional medicine, where we try and create a molecule that affects one avenue, one thing, and fixes, quote unquote, fixes a problem. But in nature, it doesn't work that way. Nature makes things that are multifunctional, and pleiotropic means that. And so the last thing we're going to talk about is a molecule called tributylin. And it is something that the bacteria in our gut makes every day, makes a lot of it. And it's known as butyrate as well. Tributylin is essentially the molecule that feeds your colon. Every cell in your colon needs butyrate every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it also modulates the lining of the gut to keep it tight, keeps inflammation under control in the gut, modulates the immune response. And here's the most fascinating thing. It actually goes into the bloodstream, travels to the brain, and works through what's known as the gut-brain axis and modulates neurochemistry. So we know now that if your gut is a mess, the chances of you having neurochemical dysfunction are significantly higher. And when we're talking about just anxiety and depression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way up to schizophrenia. They did a study in schizophrenics, and their leaky gut was 5 times that of the control group, the people that didn't have schizophrenia. So it's 5 times as prevalent. And yet, if you have a schizophrenic patient being treated by a psychiatrist, they're not even thinking about the gut. They're putting them on medicine, drugs, to try and control schizophrenia. Why not just try and fix their gut, maybe?
Right. Not a Band-Aid, but a solution.
Yeah. But there's no money in it because it's not patented. So there we are. You got to follow the money. Always follow the money.
Always follow the money.
That'll tell you who's doing what for why, right? Follow the money. You'll figure out why people are doing what they're doing. And pharma, I was in pharma. I was in medicine. And I love them for what they're good at, which is trauma. I just broke my leg. And I don't want vitamin C or curcumin.
Right.
I want a trauma surgeon that knows how to do medicine on me, right?
Right.
And they're good for infection too. If you have an infection that gets out of control, give me the high-powered vancomycin. I don't want to try oil of oregano, thank you, because
right.
I'll just, but for everything else, look to the wisdom of nature, look to the research, and there's so much research now on natural things. It's just wonderful. And I told you the other day about PubMed, PubMed. I want everybody to use that website because it's where all the legitimate scientific literature is published. And you can go there, it's free, and just type in spermidine and cancer, or spermidine and memory, or spermidine and heart, or anything you want to search for. And you'll see thousands of things that you can do your own research on.
Thank you so much for your secrets. You heard it here first. Dr. Bennett's giving us the tools.
It shouldn't be a secret. It's the keys to the kingdom, man. They're for everybody, right?
Right.
So there's plenty of knowledge that people need to be aware of. So,
well, I love when you said look to nature, because I sometimes feel like that's the last place we go sometimes for healing. Yeah. I mean, I know that if I'm struggling, or if I'm feeling a bout of depression, or if I have anxiety, or if I'm just tapped out, the first thing that comes to mind is I want to go for a hike. There's something just about being out in nature that Perfect. I feel like I'm already healing as I'm making the decision to go. You know what I mean?
Jayna, no truer words have ever been spoken. 2 things. When you exercise, you reset your parasympathetic nervous system. Right. So we have 2 nervous systems. One is the sympathetic, fight or flight, and the other is parasympathetic, rest and digest. And when you get a good workout in, you shift out of fight or flight right into rest and digest. And that's why you just feel better across the board. Okay. And the second thing is, in the US, we were raised to think traditional medicine is like God, basically. And I think it's important for us to realize we're only 200 years old. And medicine is only, 150. And our traditional pharmacopoeia is only 100. We got to look at China, and we got to look at India, because traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda have been going on for centuries, and they are profoundly effective. Here's something interesting. Do you know what berberine is? Have you
No,
ever
I've
heard of?
never heard of it.
So berberine it's a botanical. It comes from a root and it's amazing. It's pleiotropic. One of the things it's really good at is lowering your blood sugar. So instead of taking metformin, it is as effective as metformin, which is a diabetes drug, and it has a much better side effect profile. Half the people that get put on metformin stop because it gives you gas and diarrhea, and they're just like, you know what, screw it. It's miserable. So berberine is has been used for centuries in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda, and they will not export berberine capsules from China because they consider it a medicine.
Hmm.
Yeah, and China will, all due respect, they will export anything for $1, but they will not export berberine, which makes you think, huh, that must be a pretty special little substance.
Yeah.
And indeed it is. It's in a number of different products that I have. It's one of the first things I put people on when they're dealing with prediabetes or diabetes or metabolic syndrome, because it helps you bring down blood sugar. Here's another thing. You know how people are wearing those continuous glucose monitors now, and they
Yeah.
can watch it. So that's kind of cool. I like that. But here's
Yeah.
something that I've learned from a buddy of mine that was doing it. Two things. A resistance workout with weights had a much greater impact on his blood sugar numbers the next day than a Peloton workout. Much different.
I agree with that. I think strength training is you can build muscle and burn fat at the same time.
Exactly. And it just affects your physiology differently. So I want to get that out there. That's huge, right? The other thing was he learned that the way he layered his meal had a huge impact on his post-meal glucose. So the basic way to do it is veggies first, then protein, and then if you're going to have carbs, carbs.
Okay.
If you always eat in that way, it'll just be so much better for your metabolism than just mixing it all up and going to town. Yeah.
I love this. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but we are running out of time. So I just want to say, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with today that we haven't already covered?
No. Well, that's a bad question to ask me because there's always going to be more. I want people to know me. I want them to know that if you can I have a supplement company and I make great products, but I would much rather, honestly, you get it from good food and exercise. That's number one, right? If you're going to get supplements, get them from either me or another very trusted source. The shenanigans in the supplement industry are rampant, and just buyer beware is all I would say. Be very careful because it's easy to waste money. And don't buy things on impulse, man. When I get on Instagram sometimes and do the reels, and it makes me feel dirty actually at the end of the day. I told Paul that. He was laughing at me. But it's so easy. We've all done it where we see a very well done ad for something and we're like, I'm buying it. Yeah. And then we buy it, we take it for 4.5 days, and then it goes in the cabinet and we forget why we bought it. And that's another $30 or $40 down the pipes that didn't do anything for you. So be careful of that.
Do the research. PubMed.
Do the research. Yes, exactly. All right, I'm done.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Bennett. I mean, this has been a joy. We're going to have you back on the show
anytime.
And for now, I think everybody can build a roadmap and really take a look at the things that are getting in their way of living their life at their highest level, having the longevity, getting the nutrients they need to combat the stress levels and anxiety, depression. I mean, mental health is such a huge deal. And this is a huge component, just the natural way of doing things. So I've loved this conversation. And don't forget, intuitivenutrients.com. We've got a discount code for the listeners. It's AGELESS20, and you'll save 20% on Dr. Bennett's products. And we'll leave you with that. Yeah.
And one other thing, if anybody wants to do functional medicine work with me, I still do that. Not a lot, but if anybody wants to, they can email me through the website, and we can do whatever labs need to be done. And we're going to do it with you. So you'll be able to speak to it after that process. But I still do that because I love it.
I think that should be the next podcast.
Let's do it. Let's do it. That sounds perfect.
Yeah, we'll just break it down. I love doing stuff like this, so I could talk about it for hours.
Yeah, well, you know what we'll do is we'll put you through the process. Not put you through. We will enjoy the process together, and then you'll be able to speak to it as a patient, and then we can have just a little chat about it. That'll be awesome.
It'll be awesome. So that's the next podcast, y'all.
Perfect. Thanks, Jayna.
Yes, of
You're
course.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of AGELESS. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. Tune in next week for a new episode.